Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Pre-Accident Podcast. I am your host for today. My friends call me Todd, but you can call me the guy coming through the headphones connected to your phone on a plane flying someplace. You can call me that guy, or you can call me the guy in the car with you who's not really in the car with you, so you have to listen to me and suffer all the bruises that I will give you emotionally and intellectually, and yet you cannot use the carpool lane. That's me. I'd be that guy. Hey, welcome. I'm glad you're here. It's another exciting podcast, and it's always fun. I can't even tell you how excited I am about how everything's going. You know, June's coming up. We've got the big June extravaganza. Decker and I are going to travel North America. HPRCT's coming up. If you're going to that, maybe I'll see you guys there. If not, I'll look for you. I saw Mark Yeston, accidentally bumped into him in the Chicago airport. You always kind of hope that happens. Like once I almost saw Corey Pitzer. He actually did see me, but I didn't see him. But Mark Yeston and I, if you know the Chicago airport well, there's Terminal B for United, and then there's that weird tunnel with the lights and the sound that goes over to Terminal C. And if you turn there, there's a Starbucks on one side and like a Sunglass Hut on the other side. And if you're walking from security towards that tunnel, you cut through the Sunglass Hut and you cut, like, I'm serious, it's a huge efficiency. I'll bet you save 3 steps, maybe 4 steps. So I cut through the Sunglass Hut because, you know, I'm a terribly efficient, important guy. And as I cut through the Sunglass Hut, Mark Yeston was cutting through the Sunglass Hut the other direction, and we bumped into each other, and it was super fun. Sadly, we didn't have time to do anything very exciting, but we walked together for a while, laughed, took a selfie. The selfie was very, enjoying the selfie, and pretty much took off from there. But it was sure fun to see him, as it is always fun. There's lots going on in my world, and I'll bet in yours as well. It seems like I'm spending a bunch of time talking to people. We're looking at really the way we look at catastrophic failure. So serious events, fatalities, that's all really changing up, and that's becoming, I think, an opportunity for us where some new ideas are coming into the system, and that's important. And then there's lots of re-emphasis around some of the fundamental empirical principles that we carry into our work, the research-based, science-based activities that make us better. And then there's lots of great people out there just doing really great work. And that's kind of what today's podcast is all about. If you don't know today's guest, you're about to. His name's Ray Gonzalez, and he works with Hope Consulting, HOPE, Human and Organizational Performance Excellence. And he's a long-term human performance practitioner out of the nuke power industry who's rolled over and is now working in other industries, most specifically, or maybe I should say it this way, most excitingly, the industry that he's really passionate about is medical. So Ray and I got together and did a little podcast, and that's what I'm going to share with you today. I think you'll like it. I'm curious to see your feedback, because one of the great things about this world, the world in which we inhabit, is that there are many different views and many different people. And I actually think that makes it more interesting, not less interesting. And I've really been working hard this year to be accepting and understand that different views exist. They coexist simultaneously. And I think you're going to find Ray's podcast to be really, really fun. He's super entertaining. Probably the best coach, on-the-floor coach that exists in the world is probably Ray. He's that good. But listen carefully to his podcast, because he's going to talk to you about some of the old human performance values and some new human performance ideas that he's carrying in and what that means. So let me not talk much longer, because I can blab on for a long time. But it's probably better that we actually listen to and enjoy this little conversation. So I'll talk to you on the other side, but enjoy, my friends. Have a great time. This is Ray Gonzalez.
Absolutely. the past year or so working with one large utility company, rolling out a complete human performance program for them and all the processes that are associated with it. Had a lot of success. It was on the non-nuclear side of the electrical utility business, which is great. My background is commercial nuclear, but the efforts there were phenomenal. We were able to customize training and all the associated mentoring and consulting around other initiatives that they had in place. For example, lean and initiatives for improvement in the industrial safety area. So, it worked out really well. We're still kind of working with them. It's actually grown. We started with one business unit in a particular state, and then we have been working to go out to other business units throughout their generation system. So,
what are you guys learning? What are you finding? Like, for instance, how does kind of the new view crosswalk with lean?
Well, there's a lot of similarities in terms of what lean is trying to accomplish. Lean is trying to look for not only waste, but also looking for those organizational weaknesses that exist. So anytime you're trying to have any kind of culture change for continuous improvement, you're looking for those organizational weaknesses that are driving human behavior to cause error. So just like human performance efforts, we always look for those organizational weaknesses when we go out and do observations and other things as we go. So there's a lot of similarities there.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. I mean, this is a pretty good place to sort of introduce that. What's your background? What brought you into this world? All that good stuff.
Yeah, this is my 37th year in the electric utility business, and my background is commercial nuclear. So that's where I started and got into it as in the operations department, a plant operator, worked my way up into the control room, got licensed and certified, and then went off and did some training and quality assurance. I worked in work control or work management for a while. But about 24 years ago, I was introduced to human performance, and it was very interesting because at the time, I was already a study of human nature. I always wanted to learn how to improve relationships for our children, for our spouses, and just general relationships. And when I started reading the human performance material and realized that everything around us as workers, everything that surrounds us influences the way we behave, it really struck a chord with me. So I've been very passionate about human performance ever since. And for the past 24 years, I've been really focused on what that looks like. So I started a company 7 years ago to start consulting. It's called HOPE Consulting. And HOPE is an acronym for Human and Organizational Performance Enhancement. So that's what I've been doing. That's kind of how I got started, and things have been great.
How have you seen human performance change in 24 years? I think that's a good question. I'm really proud of that question, actually.
Well, I've seen a lot of different things. If we talk about the commercial nuclear industry, we all started out as infants. The maturity was very low for all of us. We were all just learning. So we took in everything. We soaked it up as a sponge. And quite frankly, I feel like we overwhelmed ourselves. We gave ourselves too many tools and techniques to think about and really kind of missed the behavioral points and the behavioral pictures of it. And so, today, when I go out and work with a client, that's why I'm so willing to customize their training, because I do an assessment of where they are today, where their current performance is. Because of the lessons we learned previously, you don't want to overwhelm the organization. In an assessment, you can tell where they're stumping their toes, if you will, or where they're struggling, and you can approach it differently with more focus. Instead of overwhelming them with a dozen or 20 different tools and techniques to learn that are standardized out there, why not pick a handful of them that'll give them the biggest bang for the buck today? So we're one of the few that are willing to do that and take that kind of customized approach. That's one thing that I've seen that's kind of changed. The other thing is that, growing up in the nuclear industry, we had lots of help. And so regulators and others that were assigned to help us could assess us and tell us at some point that we did not have an engaged workforce. That was a big thing for a while. We did not have an engaged thinking workforce. And they said, you need to change that. But no one told us how. So one of the things I did, and I made a point of doing, was to figure out, what does that look like? How do you create a truly engaged workforce? And that's when I started out thinking about the observation and feedback methods, and I created coaching to enhance performance as a result. And in that process, what we do to help that engagement is we go out and have an observation and then collect the workers together so that we can have a feedback session that is very collaborative and very much a learning experience. In fact, reading your book and reading about learning teams, it's something similar. You pull a team of folks together and you're getting all their ideas, they're collaboratively working together. Well, when you observe work and then afterwards you're ready to give feedback, it's not just one way. You make it collaborative and learning. You get information from the observer and the observees, if you will. And we've been very successful with that.
Do you find that you fix the workers, or do you find that you fix the system in which the workers are working?
Both. Because what we do is we make a point of identifying where we or the workers or themselves, they get to do some self-evaluation on what they believe they could actually do better to improve their own performance. But at the same time, we're very conscious of what organizational weaknesses in the system that may be hampering them, and we make sure we talk about those as well. So we take a two-pronged approach when we do that.
If you had a ratio like of system changes to behavior changes, what would you think it would be? Is it mostly system changes or mostly behavior changes? I'd be really curious.
Oh, I think that's really dependent on the organization and really how mature they are in various things.
So when
if they have a high maturity level in maybe Six Sigma or Lean, their processes may be very strong and their number of organizational weaknesses may be low, but others may not. So it's kind of hard to put ratios, I think, on that. But the consistency is that you need to look for both. You got to look for the behavioral so that we understand what we need to do to minimize errors and improve our performance, but you also have to be very conscientious of the system weaknesses.
So when you go in and do those assessments, which I think is that's a cool advantage you guys have, what do those look like? Are they surveys, or is it more observational, or is it conversations or focus groups? Or
it's more observational than anything, but there is a lot of interviews too. We go out and observe what's going on, what's happening in the work or out on the floor, or, in the field or wherever the work is. But we also ask lots of questions. So we do a lot of interviewing to understand what it is we've seen while we're there. So I would say it leans heavily on observations, because really, if you're looking to go in and help anyone with an initiative to improve performance, it really boils down to what kind of culture you see. And the only way you can get an idea of the culture is to go out and observe what kind of behaviors you see.
I agree. I agree. I actually think surveys kind of suck at a bunch of levels. Well, let me say it this way. It's more professional. I'm not a giant fan of the intervention of a survey, but I think observation gives you a good chance to sort of look at how work's really done. Do you see much misalignment between formalized processes and procedures and actual work done?
Well, absolutely. Workers have a tendency to get the job done. They have pride in what they do. They'll drive themselves to be efficient, and that may mean that they may drift some from what's formally there in front of them to get the job done. There may be system weaknesses that are causing them to want to have to work around or work with things that are kind of blocking their way. So yeah, there's definitely issues there.
So what would be an indicator if I were a safety guy, or I was running a system out there somewhere in industry? What would be indicators that would help me understand a good opportunity for, like bringing Ray in and looking around? What do you look for that helps you understand there's potential there to really move that organization in a positive direction towards reliability?
Well, I'll tell you, if there is no engagement from first-line supervisors, if there's not an effort for leads and supervisors to be out and watching work and giving feedback, that's certainly an indicator right there. Another indicator may be that people are driving past what a lot of people call error precursors. They're working with them and they're going beyond them. They see something that they don't understand, yet they push themselves forward. So they go beyond. They don't stop if they're uncertain or if they're unsure. If those are indicators that people are seeing at their organization, then we need to talk, because there is a way to help people understand when it is they need to stop. So a quick little story. About 15 years ago, someone came to me because we were talking about human performance tools and techniques, and he said, "Hey," he goes, "So how do I stop when uncertain if I don't know I'm uncertain?" And back then, I thought to myself, "Hey, that's a great question," and I really didn't have an answer. But years ago, I was asked to go in and take a quick look at a cause evaluation. It was a large common cause evaluation that was being done. They pulled me into that war room, that has those yellow stickies all over 3 of the 4 walls that are in there. They walked me down the timeline, and sure enough, I sensed there was something there, but I needed to see their data. So I pulled all their reports, and they had a bunch of them. And I went through all their reports, and what I found was that about 90% of the time, there was a very visible trigger staring them right in the face just before the undesirable event happened. So I pulled more operating experience, more reports from the industry, and I did some more analysis, and consistently came close to 90% of the time, these visible triggers were there. So long as the evaluation was written well and it told a story, you could tell when these visible triggers were popping up. And that told me that people were driving themselves past those visible triggers. They weren't stopping for some reason. So as a result of that, I developed trigger training to help people understand the human nature that drives us to want to proceed in the face of uncertainty, and how to do a proper stop, how to make sure we stop, get the help we need before we proceed in the face of uncertainty. With those numbers being so high, there was a chance for improvement.
What do those triggers look like? Are they goal conflicts? Are they procedural conflicts? Are they behavioral indicators? What do you normally see?
It is a variety of things, all lumped into those. Every visible trigger is some type of organizational weakness, but they're very visible. Some examples could be as simple as a label on a valve. The entire system has a certain type of coded label. You do 50 tagouts on a valve system, and you're looking at the same type of labels each time, but then you go to the 51st one and the label itself is different. It's no longer a barcode. It's an old stamp aluminum plate, like what we used to have back in the day. Visible triggers such as a vial or a bottle that contains medicine. If we're looking at the medical industry, oftentimes these days they're human factored. They come color coded so that you understand which medication it is you're actually looking for. What if you went to retrieve a bottle, you knew what medication you were looking for, but the color was different than what you expected? That in itself is a very simple cue or trigger that's telling you there's something different here.
And you've got those triggers set up in categories, right? I mean, what are those categories?
Well, they're different types. Things like things that you don't expect, they're all visible, and they're also things that might be missing, and they could be things that may not be clear or understood.
So how do you make a trigger more visible before an unexpected outcome happens than it would clearly be after an unexpected, a bad outcome happened? Let me rephrase that, because that question sounds goofy. After something bad happens, those triggers would be really obvious. How do you help workers make those triggers obvious before the bad outcome happens?
Well, here's the deal. Here's what we learn in training. They are visible no matter what. I mean, they are right there staring you right in the face. The problem is our human nature drives us to continue and push on. We, again, as I mentioned before, we take pride in what we do. We like to get our jobs done. We don't want to leave the other shift coming in hanging or whatever, having to pick up after us. So we push ourselves at times. So what we do is we help them understand the power behind their questioning attitude, which is really a manifestation of their own gut checks or their own intuition, if you will. So we help them understand clearly what that is and how powerful that is, because the visible triggers are 100% visible. They're there. And it's a matter of what we have a tendency to do is we have a tendency to slow down for a moment, and we sometimes we succumb to rationalization. And I always tell people rationalization is the number one killer of a questioning attitude. And so, we teach them how to hold back from that and to do what we call a proper stop and make sure they get the help they need before they proceed on. Now, the other great advantage of this, Todd, is the fact that with these numbers being so high, in that, about 90% of the time in our research, there is a visible trigger staring someone right in the face just before something bad is about to happen. What we, for the first time, have seen is that now there's a way to measure these events that we don't have. In human performance, in my experience in human performance for the past 24 years, we're always measuring things that have already happened. We measure all the events we've had, all the errors we've made, error rates, but everything's very reactive and it's already happened. Here we have an opportunity, if we document the trigger, what it looks like, get the help we need, turn in that information, we've just documented an event we did not have.
Yeah, it's a painfully obvious question, but I was going to ask you the same question. If these triggers are really visible, then it seems like we could identify the triggers before they have a failure and actually go out into the field and fix these triggers.
Absolutely.
Like crazy.
That is exactly what we do. And that's exactly what it's intended for. And it has produced some phenomenal results and some real turnaround for clients that have received it.
So that's a really cool thing. So part of your analysis and then part of your customization you're talking about is actually going out and helping them create a system or a process or a program or an attention or an emphasis towards going into the field and identifying these triggers pre-event. But that's pretty cool. Actually, that's really cool.
And I got to say, right now, and this is my latest focus area, is the medical industry. I've been very, very blessed, if you will, to get into the medical industry and start to figure out a way where I can help. I managed to get myself hooked up with the University of North Texas Health Science Center Institute for Patient Safety, and they've appointed me as an associate fellow. So now I'm there to help consult and mentor. And one of the things I've already learned is that in the medical industry, they are looking really hard at trying to figure out a metric for lives saved. And I got a feeling that the triggers process and concept will apply very well here. So I'm very excited about that, and I'm looking forward to working with them and the medical industry to continue that.
What do you see as the future of human performance? Where do you see all this kind of heading? What's it all leading to?
Well, a couple things. A lot of organizations are very cyclic in their performance. When they are doing well, they have a tendency to ignore human performance or other safety issues or even lean processes for that matter, and things start to collapse again. So it's very cyclic is one thing. But what I see in the future as a vision, we've done really well in the airline industry. We've done really well in the commercial nuclear industry. But I got to say that in the future, I believe that the medical industry is going to lead the way in human performance efforts for patient safety and quality health care. I just have a feeling that big ship is going to get turned around pretty soon. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about getting into this area, is because, what we do today, Todd, there's no doubt in my mind we're saving lives through the electrical industry, the chemical industry that I've been working with, chemical munitions industries that I've been helping. I know we're saving lives there. But when we get into the medical industry, we can have a tremendous impact immediately. And they are making great strides today, but we really need to help them. That's a very, very big elephant.
So what are you reading? What's interesting you? What are you doing for your own development? That's always a great question.
I read lots. I tell you what, I read lots of books. I love to learn, and I've been buying books left and right. So lately I've been buying some books on obviously the medical industry. I read all the common books that we've all read, the information from Reasons, the information from Decker. But I've read everything. I'm reading your book. I've read other books of various kinds, and now I'm starting to head into medical. So for that, I picked out a few books to read right away. One of them is called Unaccountable. The other one was the old book that's been around for quite a while called The Checklist Manifesto. The executive director at the Institute of Patient Safety there at UNT Health Science Center recommended a couple of books to me, and I've got those on order. So yeah, I love to research. And the great thing about being connected with this university is they provide classes. So I'm actually going to take some online classes and learn even more. So yeah, I love to learn.
So if you could give one piece of advice to either a safety practitioner or a reliability practitioner, a human performance person, or a company, what would it be?
Well, I think my advice would be the focus has to be on sustainability. You can do you can put on all the initiatives you want, and you can spend, tons of money on various things. But if the sustainability is not there, you're going to lose. So the sustainability behind that is a shift in culture. And with sustainability comes help. You need help. You need to make sure you're coaching and mentoring on a regular basis. And if you're not good at that, bring in those coaches and those mentors to help you keep the wheel rolling, keep everything going after you've started various initiatives. In my opinion, it's all about sustainability, but a lot of people don't know how to do that. What you want to do is you want to be able to shape the behaviors in the organization on a daily and consistent basis. And that's one of the things, again, that we specialize in is that, when you go out and do observations and you give feedback, you're shaping behaviors today. And you're looking for all those organizational weaknesses today. You're shaping the behaviors that look for organizational weaknesses. So if you don't stay on it and continuously do it, the sustainability will drop and you'll start to lose again. So it's cyclic. It can be very cyclic. And I would say stay focused on that.
How do people contact you?
Well, I can be reached on my business number at 817-716-9727. And you can also reach me via email at Ray. My first name is spelled Ray, R-E-Y, at hopeconsultingllc.com.
So I thought this podcast was pretty interesting. It was a combination. I thought it was going to be kind of old school, and I was interested in that because that's, interesting. And it kind of moved to new school, and it's a real discussion of that parallel path between behavior and systems, which I don't know where you are on that, but I think that's a really good question, and I liked what Ray had to say about it. I think initially we thought it was maybe mostly behavior in some system. And I think some people, like for instance, me, I would be one of those some people, think it's probably mostly system and some behavior. I like where Ray's kind of in between. And I do know he's really good with going out and talking to workers, coaching and providing real guidance and feedback towards reliable performance. And that's an art. I mean, that's a real talent. It's hard to teach people. It seems to me you're kind of born with that skill. And Ray brings it to the table for sure. So I thought it was a pretty good podcast. It was interesting, that's for sure. And they're always interesting. They're always super fun. And I'm always looking for new voices. And that's pretty much what the whole goal of this podcast is. So that's what we're doing. We're out there doing it, baby. So I hope you enjoyed this. I did. I hope you get what you need. Have as much fun as you possibly can. That's important to me. Learn something new every single day. And for goodness sakes, you guys, be safe.